Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with Tia and Jill. We are so excited to have you this week. And our wonderful guest, Kate, is here with us today. Welcome.
Yes, hello. I'm super happy to be here with everybody today.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, but we are happy to have you here because, right, all this show is all about like sharing perspectives and having people that people don't normally like in our circles to see so that we can like have new insights. And so we are super excited to have you and the topic that you're bringing today.
Yes, super relevant topic, super relevant to our audience, right? You all listening, to ourselves, right? Even as we think about our careers and where we want to go. And so, Kate, we're so excited to have you here to talk because this is a topic of, how do I shift what I'm doing, right? Whether it's your full career, which is what you did, and we're excited for you to share your story and to talk more about it, or if it's shifting pieces of our career, right? We have these same emotions around it, and then many times we have to take very similar steps. So we're excited about it.
Yes. And of course, welcome to the audience. If you're here live with us, yay. Yes. You know how this works. Drop an emoji, share where you're joining us from. Because I love that actually the three of us are representing different parts of the country as well.
Yeah.
I'm up in Minnesota where today it is cold, rainy fall.
Oh, cold and rainy. Yeah. Well, I'm in Baltimore. It's cold, but it's beautiful. Yeah. Maybe not Minneapolis cold or Minnesota cold. We're like we're in the 40s. Overnight, it got below freezing.
That's where we are too. Just it's rainy, drizzly, overcast.
Ooh.
Yes. And I'm in Denton, Texas, where it's trying to be like fall, but it's still going to be about 80 degrees today, which I'm happy about. But so that's really our fall, but it's definitely a lot warmer than where Jill and Tia are, it sounds like. So,
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And like 80, you're right. It's starting to get into the fall. You all have been so hot.
Yes.
This year.
Yes.
So hot this year.
All right. And we talk about cold, but I'm guessing Megan from Alaska, you've got a speed on that one.
Right.
And that's just the assumption I'm making.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you never know. It might be beautiful there today. Nice and crisp. That's what I think about with cold weather. It's like crisp weather when it's nice and sunny. I keep looking out my window. My window's right there. And it is. It's pretty beautiful outside. So
yes. Well, we are excited to dive into our topic, but I also want to share with folks where it's maybe your first time joining us and you're like, what is this Real Talk and who is Catalyst? Well, Catalyst is your partner for talent strategy and leadership development for people in food. Tia and I have been in the food industry for years, and what we saw is a gap when it comes to development for people in food. We are often pulling from automotive industry or healthcare, these other places, which all the concepts are similar, but it's very different when you have someone in your space who understands what you're going through, what it's like, and all of the details of the industry. And so we've brought that through Catalyst into leadership development, with coaching, with partnering with organizations, because it's really about how do we help you have professional and personal growth. And by doing that, that helps build capabilities and capacity within businesses as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a win-win.
Yes. That's what we do. And that's what we're excited about and passionate about. Mm-hmm. And this topic today around career shifts, you'll notice through the conversation is that it's grounded in you, right? What do you want to do? What do you value? How do you want to live your life? How do you not want to live your life? Right. And exploring those concepts, it's all about self-awareness, mm-hmm. right? Of yourself, but even how you show up in different spaces. And a lot of times we kind of just throw out those words on, you just need to become more aware, right? You just need to do this. But in reality, those are skills. Those are skills to be built in practice and strengthened over time. It doesn't just come to you. Even those, right, that might be a little bit more naturally inclined, you still have to build those skills, right, and strengthen them. Yeah. So this topic fits right in to what
get into it.
Yes. And what you're looking for. So yes, Kate, hello, welcome.
Hello. Yes.
We want you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you make it to this point?
Yeah. So, hello, everyone. Again, I'm just super happy to be here. I'm Kate Warrington, and my role is I am the Learning Experience Delivery Manager here at TetraPak in Denton, Texas. And you're probably wondering, okay, what does a Learning Experience Delivery Manager do? What I do is I actually have a team of instructors that all have really strong engineering backgrounds, and they travel all over US, Canada, Mexico, and sometimes other places in the world to deliver technical training on the equipment that we have at TetraPak. I'm also responsible for the quality of our training. So when my instructors visit customer sites, we want to make sure that that's a really excellent experience. And so I keep tabs on all of their feedback, making sure that we're doing a really good job in that space. So that's my role in a nutshell. And I've been at TetraPak now for about 2 years. Definitely made a big career shift, which I definitely want to share with you all. But I found my happy place in this role here at TetraPak and in the food industry. So just couldn't be happier where I am today.
I love that. And so you talked about this career shift, and you made a pretty big career shift. So tell us a little bit about where you started and why you started to think about this shift in career.
Yeah, so I started in the higher education industry. So I earned my PhD in rhetoric and composition, which is a really fancy way to say English. And so I was an English professor about 15 years ago. I started as an English professor. Wow. And so I worked at a couple of different universities over time, and then transitioned into more the operational aspect of running a university. So I was a director of operations for a period of time. And then I actually worked in the higher education marketing space for online programs. So very immersed in the field of higher education. And then what happened, I think it happened to a lot of people probably during the pandemic. So what I was doing before the pandemic is I was traveling every other week back and forth to one of our home offices. So I was on the road all the time. And when everything shut down, it gave me a minute to really think about what I'm doing. Am I really happy? Am I feeling fulfilled in my day-to-day? Is this the right thing for me? And it was interesting because I wasn't feeling very discouraged and disgruntled about my job. I always had what I sort of called an itchy feeling where there was just something that wasn't right. And I don't really know what it was. I thought early in my career that it was because I wasn't climbing the ladder fast enough. I just wanted to move up and keep getting higher positions. And that would definitely solve the itchy problem. Well, the funny thing is that as I moved up, it didn't go away. The feeling didn't go away. I still had this sort of, I wouldn't call it like deep-seated unhappiness. It was just like, maybe this isn't right for me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So that was the tricky thing. And then, so I was feeling this and I sat down with a friend. This is, I guess, I went through the pandemic. I did a lot of reflecting. I had an executive coach who was helping me with sort of interrogating why I might be feeling this itchy discomfort about my job. And a lot of the questions that she asked me helped me to reflect in a lot of ways. I started really thinking about when were the times in my career that I was happiest and what was I doing during that time. And then I sat down, I went to dinner with a friend, and this is probably a little after when the lockdown released a little bit. I went out to dinner with a friend and I was talking with her about this feeling. And I said, you know what I really think is missing? I think I really want to move out of higher education, but I don't want to do it unless I'm in a place that has a really strong culture, a really strong mission that is improving people's lives in the world. And I sort of felt like that was a lot to ask, that maybe that would never happen. Yeah, it's a big goal. It's sort of like, the beauty queen that says, I want world peace. Like, I mean, maybe this isn't out there, So I was telling her all this, and she told me, she said, I used to work at a place like that. And I was like, really? Because it's kind of a lofty thing. And she told me about TetraPak. And I didn't know much about Tetra Pak. I didn't know much about the food packaging industry, being immersed in higher education for so long. So I spent a lot of time doing research, and the more I researched, the more I thought, okay, I see this mission of sustainability, of making food safe and available everywhere in the world with the packages that we have. And I thought, okay, that's a pretty serious mission. I really connect with that. So I think this is a place where I would like to be. And then my next question was, well, what do they want with me? I used to be an English professor. I know all about higher education. So, I mean, I'm not an engineer. I don't know anything about this. And so I started looking at job postings, and I found the role I'm in now. And I thought, I see a window of where I can contribute here. And the rest is history. But it was a long process.
Just like that. No.
It was super easy. No, but it was a long process. This is years of reflection that led up to me taking this role at TetraPak and finding the right fit. So I'm just very fortunate that it worked out the way it did, and that my friend led me in the right direction, because I might have been doing research that never really panned out for a very long time, and continued to feel sort of that itchy feeling, and not really finding my place. Yeah.
Wow. Kate, I love that story. Just how, like, even just sharing, like, this wasn't a process that was like 4 weeks. This was something that was years in the making, and how you really leaned into this reflecting and even getting support to say, like, what is actually going on here? Because of course, when we try to analyze or understand our own thoughts, sometimes that can be a little bit messy. And I also, what I'm curious about, because you mentioned that you had kind of this itchy feeling even earlier on in your career. What was it that made it different this time to lean into looking for something different than perhaps before?
Yeah, I think I had to almost mature in my professional self to understand what it was. Because like I said, I think when I started, I just thought it's because I need more. I need a higher level. I need a different title. I need more money. I want to climb that ladder, and I want to climb it fast. And I want to show how good I am. And I need to prove that to people. And that's where I thought it was coming from early on, because I would say in my life, I've sort of been one of those people that's very motivated by achievement. So I know that about myself. So I thought when I was feeling this, that it was just, well, now you want to be a manager. Now you want to be a senior manager. Now you want to be a director. Now you want to do all these things. And so I worked really hard to climb the ladder. Probably, I would even say, working borderline workaholic, really just burning the candle at both ends. And each time I would achieve a promotion that I thought would make that feeling go away, it didn't go away. So after that series of sort of that trajectory, that's when I said, okay, I think this isn't it. This is not going to solve the problem.
Yes.
When the real reflection I had to begin the real reflection, the internal digging to find out what it was that was missing.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like, anybody, like, drop an emoji if you're like, I've been there.
Yeah.
Like, I think what you just described is a feeling, like, as you're talking about, I'm like, I can relate to that. Like, I'm feeling some of those emotions where you're like, it's just the next thing. When I get there, like, it's just the always waiting or looking for something more.
Yes. And Jill, I think even the way that you said it, like, when we try to even use our own thoughts to help look at our own thoughts, right, without outside help, sometimes we lean on the things that we know about ourselves, right? We love to achieve. We feel great when we achieve, right? So maybe that's what I need to do more of, right? Or insert, this is what I'm great at, or insert, this is what I've been doing. Let me just do more of that to see. And sometimes, right, people are like, yes, that's exactly what I needed. This is the role that I needed, right? That's perfect. But other times, right, we still feel that uncomfortable sort of sitting where it feels like, I'm right with you. It's hard to describe, but it's like, I want more. more of something. I don't know what that is. Maybe we thought it was promotion, money, title, or, I used to talk about it in terms of like job, like the type of job that I want to do. So like, I want to do that job. So I need to figure out how to get to that job. And then, right, I won't have that feeling anymore. But the feeling is still there, even in that job, right? So yeah, like Jill said, I think a lot of people feel that moment and we don't necessarily know, should we be shifting and doing something different, or should we continue to, it's almost like chasing your tail, right? You're just going in a circle where it's like, okay, these promotions or insert, what's happening is not actually making you feel fulfilled.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because it can be a cycle. It can be, how much more do I need to make this feeling stop, to really feel fulfilled in my career?
Right.
Is how much more do I need? Because I just kept thinking it's got to be more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And it was never that way. It never subsided. So yeah, it was tricky. It was actually very confusing. In my life, that was a very confusing time where I was like, why am I not feeling like I have everything I want? Yeah. When I can rationalize and look around, well, these are all my goals. I'm hitting those goals. Why do I not feel like that's enough, or that I'm satisfied?
It sounds like it's kind of like the on paper or in my resume, people would be like, looks like you got it all. It's all working out the way you had hoped for. The dream is coming true, but yet still having that feeling of like, not there.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. One other thing that you said when you were trying to figure out where do you go next is that your friend really said, hey, like you should check out TetraPak. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because it's like sometimes those things come to us from other people, but it was because you were open enough to share. Mm-hmm. Right? Share what your big goal is, what your big dream is with someone. And it seems like it's unattainable. But when you say it out loud and you say it to someone's like, oh yeah, I have something, right? Or I know someone, it's just saying it out loud and communicating exactly what you want, right? Not downplaying it, right? You could have said, well, maybe just have a shift and maybe doing something that's similar or, but you said what you wanted so that someone can actually meet you where you are versus like, if you had downplayed it and said, well, I'm just looking to get out of academia. And then they could have suggested
anything. Right. Right.
But you were clear on like, this is what I want. And I'm not going to water it down. I'm not going to say something else to make it seem kinder or nicer, or, insert things that we say to ourselves just to, not put our full selves out there. But I think that was key to you finding a role that works for you because you were honest about that, honest to yourself and others.
It absolutely was, because I think too, that conversation that happened over dinner with my friend also came out of a lot of reflection over the years. Mm-hmm. So I had identified what I thought I wanted. Finally. Mm-hmm. And then to have such a great resource in this friend, and I'm fortunate, I have a lot of friends who are professional women as well. And having people like that to talk to, they're not executive coaches, which that's helpful in a way too, right? That was helpful to me to sort of get to that point. Mm-hmm. But then to have just friends that you can just say, hey, this is what I'm really struggling with right now. And being really open about it and honest, I think that was huge because she knew exactly. She had been through similar things too. So she knew exactly what I was struggling with and trying to get at. And of course, that was frankly, a life-changing conversation for me. And every day I tell her, because we're still really good friends, I tell her, I'm like, you have no idea how you helped me and how you led me in this direction. It's a wonderful direction. I so appreciate her as a friend, but I also appreciate her for offering that advice. Yeah. So without that guidance of all that support from my executive coach to help me get to that point where I could even articulate what I wanted, and then friends that understand that professional challenges that we face, mm-hmm. and wondering what we want to do with our career. I think I'm very lucky to have had all of that in my life at the time that helped me find this.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Amazing. That really is.
You know, as I think about this path that you're talking about and this journey, like that's not for the faint of heart. To think about this shift from one industry. And I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday when we just made sure everything was working, but going from academia to food, like that, there was a lot in there. And I'm curious if you would share a little bit about like, what did that look like for you and how did you approach it? Because I think we talked about a lot of times people are like, well, if you have skills here, they're transferable over here. You could just go look for something here. But I love your story talks about it's not quite that simple.
Yeah, it's not quite that simple. I think the first thing is it's important to recognize what those transferable skills are, first of all. And so we can identify those just off the top of our heads now, right? We could say, okay, leadership, communication, these things. So I knew that those were skills I had, but just because somebody has a lot of leadership and a lot of communication doesn't mean that you can make a rapid career pivot. So I knew that. I knew that I had to bring more than just saying I have demonstrated leadership skills. I am a good communicator. I had to do more than that because there are a lot of people out there that have those skills that come from all kinds of industries. So it took a little deeper reflection there. I think the key for me was, of course, once I realized I wanted this particular position at TetraPak, I studied the job description and looked for any entry point of where I felt like not that just had a transferable skill, but where I can make a contribution. That's different than saying I have a skill. It's saying here I'm seeing there's a team that needs to be led that has had they'd had many managers over time. So I kind of knew that. So I'm like, okay, stability, leadership, professional growth. How can I anchor that into this situation that I know is present in this role I'm going to take? So it was a little more practical than just saying I have leadership skills. I have communication skills. It was really trying to find, and in talking with the recruiter too, really sort of asking the right questions. What is really needed in this role? What are the big challenges? So then I could see myself in situations and I could, in the interview process, relate those to other situations that I'm like, okay, I can take this situation and I know I can be successful here and bring that experience, not just a transferable skill, but this is how I'm going to approach the work.
Right. Yes.
And the other thing too, is it's not just about like the contributions and all of that. It's also about where are the gaps and being really honest. I knew that coming in, and it happened even in the first round of interviews with me, it was, tell us about your technical experience. Well, I don't have any. So
that relates.
That relates exactly.
I've been in academia for many years.
English, right?
Academia. So am I an engineer? No. Have I ever been around equipment in a factory? No. Do I know anything about how that equipment is sold no. So I knew I was really going to have to talk about that and own the fact that I don't have that experience. I think the worst thing I could have done was try to sort of, okay, where can I find that in my past and make it sound like it's relevant? I was very honest and said, I don't have that. I don't have that, but I know I can learn the technical things, because one thing I know about myself is that I can learn. I am committed to it. I really want this. And I will dedicate myself to making sure I understand, for example, the portfolio of equipment we have and learning what it does and learning why that's important. And instead of trying to say, oh yeah, technical experience because I was married to an engineer. So I was married to an engineer. So I learned some things. That would have felt so fake and inauthentic. And I just couldn't be that way. So I just said, hey, I don't have that. And being okay with that gap, but also knowing that if this was a job that I was selected for, that I had to prove from day one that I really was going to learn. And I had to be ready for that.
Yeah.
So that was, I think those were the big things, really.
Yeah. I feel like that's the scary part, right? Of saying in an interview that I don't know this part or I don't have those skills. And so I'm just curious, just from maybe it's even a mental standpoint, just that mental resilience to go through interview after, because I'm sure you had more than one interview, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
to go interview after interview, knowing that you have this gap, how did you push through those interviews and continue to tell that message around, I don't have these things, but this is why you should still hire me?
Yeah. I think that anyone on a job search, you have to really look for the feedback. What feedback are you getting? And I kept realizing that, the recruiter kept in contact with me. There was a question that would come in here and there, and I would take that as, I'm like, okay, I'm obviously bringing something they're interested in. And I would really get excited about that when I started maybe feeling that, well, I don't have the technical skills. Nope. Remember, they called you. They wanted more information. So focus on the wins and the positive things that you're getting and the positive feedback. Because I think if I had shifted my perspective to be like, no, I just don't have the technical skills. Why would they be interested in me? I just can't continue to justify why I would be good. I really wanted the role. And I think that by focusing on those positive little tidbits, it helped me. The other thing is because I had done so much research and I had researched not just the company, but the position I wanted. And I was able to also focus on my why. I had a very clear idea of why I thought this role was good for me and why I could contribute to the company. So when things started going down that technical route, I would acknowledge, yes, I don't have those skills, but here's why.
Yeah.
I really think I can make a contribution. So it's believing in the reason that you want it and understanding and knowing every bit of why this would be a good fit if you really believe it. Because really, I think we all know, if you don't really believe it, if you don't believe it's the right step and you're not sure, that negativity can creep in.
Yes.
and everyone can see that. So I continued this process because I knew, I was like, I really feel like this is for me. I feel very confident in that. So I wasn't afraid of saying, hey, I don't really have the technical skills. I know I can learn them, trust me on that. I will. And I know it now. I can tell you all about the portfolio now.
I love it. I think it's so relatable because I think in the food industry, well, in every industry, right? As you even think about the pathway that you talked about with promoting and moving up and gaining responsibility, there's fewer and fewer seats when you think about that. And in food, one of the ways to kind of help move in that direction is actually like horizontally or even taking a step back. And I think in those times, how often it's like, oh gosh, I don't have experience in procurement or perhaps in maybe marketing or in product development, pick a spot.
Yeah.
But I love how you've kind of tied this together to say, acknowledge like maybe I don't have all of those specific skills, but here's what I have and here's my why.
Absolutely. And I think what you just said, Jill, is so relevant too, because when I did a lot of introspection about, okay, when was I happiest in my career? When was that moment? And I remember very clearly, it was when I took on my very first team. And I loved that team and I loved building that team. And they started as a small but mighty team of 4, and they ended up as a team of 23. By the time I moved on to the next role. And we were busy and we had a lot of successes together. And I was so happy in that space.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that when I was looking at this role at TetraPak, because I am a frontline manager. I have my team of 7, and we have built so many wonderful things in the last 2 years. And so I'm back in that happy space. But what I didn't get caught up in, the role I was in before this, I was a VP of marketing. So that took a little bit of thoughtfulness
Right.
in many ways to say, if I really want this itchy feeling to go away, I certainly don't. I think I need to start back to where I had that happy space. And I know some people can't do that. Some people, it's hard to say, I'm going to take some steps back in my title and or even in my salary or whatever it is to focus on what I know I want. Some people, that's too hard of a decision. And there are a lot of really good reasons why not to do that too. I know that it could be family concerns, if you need like financial concerns, things like that. But for me, I was fortunate enough to say, I'm going to make this choice because I really think that's my happy space. Yes. I want to go back and I want to build a team from the ground up and really make it good.
Yeah.
And so it never concerned me. I do have friends that have said, "Are you crazy? What?
Like,
have you lost your mind? Is this your midlife crisis? Like, really?" But it was so thoughtful and it was what's right for me that I never looked back. And that's really hard for some people to believe, but it's absolutely true. And it didn't hurt that, of course, coming from higher ed into food packaging, obviously higher ed's not known for its like super high salaries. So it wasn't as much of a gap as you might think in certain industries. So it was a little easier that way. It's not easy for everybody. But for me, I was like, I want to go back into that happy place where I was before. Yeah. And like I said, that's why I knew it was the right fit for me. But it was a lot of people looked at me sideways and thought, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, and even that, I'm going to put it out there about like how to reframe. Cause I think people do go, gosh, midlife crisis. Like, no, I'm actually aligning and awakening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love how you even relate that to the awareness and aligning back to what is it that made me happy?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this belief that I can do the work that makes me happy and still have the other things that I need.
Yes.
It's not a this or that in these situations. There are places, if we're willing to look, find, work, research.
Right. Yeah.
And even you being brave to step into that awareness and the conversation.
Yes. And it is bravery, right? Because there's this fear there of, I know I'm going to stay with the devil I know, right? Like, I'm just going to stay here because I know this area. I don't know that area over there. So I'm curious, how did you overcome that fear of wanting to stay on a familiar path?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've never been really afraid to take on new things. And so it's a little bit of just me, I guess, too. For example, last Friday, I earned my first degree black belt in Taekwondo. So obviously I started that in like a later. So I'm willing to take risks maybe more than other people are, right? But I think I had a great community around me that, so professional community and then friends of professional women who are friends that I could really confide in. And they were an encouraging force to say, when you're talking to me, I feel like it does sound right for you. This isn't crazy. If it was crazy, I would say, maybe we step back and think of some things. But so I had a lot of encouragement there. Also, I love reading books about professional growth. And there was a book I read, and it's by Whitney Johnson. It's the S Curve. And it talks about how in your career, when everything just seems so easy, you're at the top of that S curve and you're not really growing as much anymore. It's almost a stagnation point. And I started to realize when I read that book, I was like, I think that's kind of where I am in higher ed, in the roles that I felt that I had been in. I was there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes to get back to that growth point, which that's where I'm happiest, it's sort of that flow state. It's that you're learning and you're really growing. You have to take a step back to that bottom of the S curve, right? And just not really start over again, but but keep your learning. Like use the skills you have, but start a new learning process. So that was very motivating for me. I like challenges like that. I like to start new learning processes. So that's the way I approached it. And I was talking with someone in another forum like this, and the question was great because it was like, well, but didn't you ever have a moment though when you started this this new role and you just felt like an imposter, like the imposter syndrome, like you don't fit in, you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Yes.
And the way I see that is of course I felt that way. I'm around people that have been here for 20 years that know everything there is to know. And I'm like, I don't even know what that acronym means. Like, can you please explain acronyms, right? But that's part of the S curve. So the way I look at that is not that I'm an imposter. It's not that I don't fit in. It's that I'm on a growth curve. Because if I knew everything and I felt totally confident in everything I'm doing and it's all just like rote memorization, I've got it, then I'm stagnant again.
Right.
And that scares me more than anything else, is getting to that stagnant place. And so this sort of helped me. I don't think I'm going to be in a stagnant place for a while because I'm still very much learning the industry, and I'm going to be in a happy place for a while on that growth curve. So I think that's sort of the way I was thinking about it when I made the choice. Yeah.
I love that. Like, it's just the key of you just doing the work to be aware of who you are, right? What you like, what you don't like, how you lean into risk. All of that played into your ability to be able to shift, when you were ready to shift.
Yes.
I think that even embodies growth mindset, what Carol Dweck had in mind when you think about, well, I don't know that yet. Yes. And not only is that powerful for the feeling it gives us with that excitement or curiosity, but even like with our brains and our brain function with neuroplasticity, with keeping everything functioning so that we can operate at higher levels because our brain is used to being challenged to think outside of what we know.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
This is awesome. I just this shift, right, and the scariness of it, and you being able to step outside of yourself, right, and be able to say, okay, I'm going to lean into who I am and find the right role for me. I'm curious because you do have leadership experience, right, just being in learning and development. I'm curious, what would you say are the top, maybe one or two leadership skills that you have that helped you with this transition?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really like about myself, and I think it's okay when we say, for all of you out there, it's okay to say, I like this about myself.
Yes.
So what I like about myself is I know what I'm good at. And one of the leadership skills is I can take something that is in a really bad place, whether it's a team, a project. I like to take the things that are a mess and make them not a mess, make them really great. So I look for the places that are not functioning well, because then I want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to I'm like, I can make it good. I know I can make it good. So I don't know what kind of skill that is, but I gravitate toward the mess. And so that is, and that was one thing that when I was, interviewing at TetraPak, I said, I like to take something that either doesn't exist and needs to exist, or something that has become dysfunctional for some reason, and really build it and make it good.
Yeah.
And I think that, that was, I think it was something that has definitely helped me in the job here, because I think that, like I said, I had a team that had been through many, many managers over time and didn't have a lot of stability. So there wasn't a lot of growth, but they wanted it, and they're great people. So I was like, oh, this is going to be good, because I can bring them together, and we can have a team, and we can really do great things together.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me really excited. So I think that was one of the things, is just like acknowledging that I'm not afraid to get into the mess.
Yes.
I always say you have to put the ugly out on the table in order to deal with it. If you keep sweeping it under the rug, it just gets worse and worse. So I love to let's just put the ugly out on the table and let's fix it together.
Yes. I love that.
Well, and you're speaking right to Elena, who's like, she says too, she
Yes.
loves creating order out of chaos.
Mhm.
Yes. She
Right?
understands how wonderful that can be, is just seeing something that you knew wasn't working the way it could, but seeing the potential in it and then making it into something great. That's what I love to do. And I think I'm good at that. I think I have the track record of that. So I feel like that's a skill. I don't know the name of that skill. I think we need to create a category for that.
A name for it. But I think it also falls within like how you build relationships, right? With your team, and the fact that they learn to trust you over time and learn to follow your leadership. Right. So you have this way of building relationships and trust and safe spaces so that people do feel like, okay, yeah, you have my back. I know who he is. Now I'm getting development. I'm leaning in right into the work that I'm doing and into the development because I know my manager, right, have created the safe space for me. And so typically when people are great at creating, order out of chaos, it will continue to be chaotic if no one's listening to you, right? Or if no one's getting on board, you don't have this way of inspiring others to act, right? It'll just continue to be this chaos. But it seems like you have these skills so that you're able to help people get to the same place so that you can walk together versus walking in all different areas.
Yeah. And I think too, changing careers completely. Another thing that really helped is I'm not afraid to ask people about things, ask questions, stop people and say, wait, I'm not understanding. Again, the acronyms, I sort of joke about that, but it's a very real thing.
It is a real thing.
It's a very real thing. So it could be, I know when I first started, I was like, hang on, can you explain what all these things are? Because that's how I knew my learning process had to happen. So I'm not a shy person, and I'm not afraid to say, I really didn't understand. I just sat in a meeting and I didn't understand anything that was happening in that meeting because the conversation was just about things I don't know yet. But then I was fortunate enough, to have a really great boss who I could come to for all those things. And she really helps me to learn. And so now I feel a lot more confident. When I first started, I was like, wow, there's a lot I need to learn. But also like making sure I was carving out the time to learn. So it's easy to get swept up in, you're doing all the onboarding and you're trying to just start figuring out your job. But then it's like, wait,
such a good
I need to learn these things. Yeah.
So it's almost what you promised them, right? Like I can learn these processes. How are you carving out that time to do that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was the key. And the way I did it too is saying, okay, I have these 4 meetings. I really feel like I'm not going to understand some of these meetings. And my boss helped me decide this one you should go to, this one don't, this one go to, this one don't. Right. So then when I wasn't in meetings, I could do trainings. I could go meet with people who I could learn about their job function and how I can help them. And so we sort of really tried to limit all of those other activities that were probably a little too much at first. Until I could really start to participate and be a meaningful contributor in those spaces. So I think having a boss that was really good about that was helpful, but also when being honest about saying, I need more time to learn and how can I get that time?
Yeah. Prioritize.
I hear like prioritizing and being intentional.
Yes.
So, there may be some people who are thinking, I am having that itchy feeling that you described earlier.
Yes.
I'm not sure that where I'm at or what I'm doing doesn't fully fill me up. Maybe it doesn't align to my values, but gosh, I'm not sure I can take this on. I'm not sure I could step into that, even though what you've done is amazing. Like what insights or encouragement would you offer them, based on what you've gone through?
Yeah, I would say it is hard. So it's not an easy thing. So I think there's sort of times when it's right to consider a career shift and maybe times when it's not. So be aware of where you are. If you are, I always say, if you really need a job, maybe you've been part of a layoff that was really disruptive to your life and all that, that may not be the right time to say, I'm going to do a career pivot. Because a career pivot is destabilizing in itself. So if you're already in a space that's been destabilized by a layoff or something like that, it can probably create more anxiety and chaos, depending on the type of person you are and what you're ready to tackle. So I would say just be aware of where you are emotionally and in your professional life before you take it on. It's not always the right time. And definitely take the time to do the reflection. Like, when were you happiest? Talk to friends. What companies, like what industries are you interested in? Where do you want to shift? How do you know it's the right thing? It's not something you can just decide in 2 hours. Hey, I'm just going to change careers now.
Right.
So there's a lot of work that needs to go into it, and some of you may be ready for that. Maybe you've sort of been going through a process and you're ready to jump off, but you're a little afraid.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, don't be afraid. But if you felt like you haven't done the work to really find the right fit, I think take a step back and do that reflection. Talk to friends, get an executive coach, work with somebody, and figure it out.
Yeah. The message through your story is really this time of reflection. We keep going back to it, but I think it's important for people to understand, like, this does not happen overnight. And like you said, if you're in a desperate situation, you're less likely to do those reflections, right? Have those conversations with yourself, because really you might not have the time. You might not even have the brain power to, because something drastic has happened, right, in your life. And you might, like you said, need a job right away, or don't have the ability to shift, right? Because whatever reason. But it's important that you have that time to reflect and understand who you are to make that shift successful. Otherwise, right, like if you hadn't done that work and you made a shift, you might have still been feeling that feeling. Right? And
Absolutely.
now it's like, well, is it the industry? Is it this? Am I right? Like, it opens so many questions because you didn't do the reflection in the beginning.
Yeah. And I think too, it could have backfired. I mean, I think there's no guarantees in anything. I could have done all the work and I could have changed careers and been like, wow, this isn't what I thought. I think I've been very fortunate that I love being at TetraPak. It's a good fit for me. But also, it's not that every career shift ends up in this beautiful rainbows and unicorns land. It may not. And in that case, it's, again, going back to that introspection. What went wrong here? Is this just not the right fit for me? Is it because I didn't lean into the learning that I needed? Is it because it's just a job that I thought I would like that I don't? So I think that's the thing too, is not everything. This is not the answer to everything. It can be. It can help you find something that more aligns better with your personal mission and purpose. But it is risky because there's no guarantees.
Yeah, and you might not get it right the first time, right?
That's right.
People, if you can pivot once, you can pivot again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think, once again, reframe. Because if you weren't happy where you were and you jump and you move somewhere else and you're like, gosh, that's not it either.
Yeah.
You at least have energy moving.
Yes.
If you're over here, you're stagnant and you're just sitting here. But instead, you were brave enough to step up and go, I'm going to move to something else. If it doesn't work, good. You know how to make a move and do something else again.
Yes.
And you have that ability, and you already have shown that you are motivated to do that. And I love how you talk about even that scared feeling, because I think as we consider what we're scared of, it's good to think about that. Am I scared simply because it's the unknown of my comfort zone and our survival brain is kicking in to say, go back, go back? Or is there really a real risk there that is trying to flag you to be considered before you make the move?
Right. Yeah.
And only you will know. Right? That's all that listening and trusting in yourself to know what that is. Yes.
I'm curious, Kate, since you made the shift, right, and you are in the role that you want to be in, right? It seems like, If you were to make another shift, do you think it'll be easier or harder for you to get there?
I think it would be easier because it's what Jill just said. It's now I'm really brave. I know I can do it. Right. I know I can do it. Right. There's like, it's not as scary of an endeavor as it was the first time because I've done it. Right. And so I have confidence that I can do it. And I have better ways to articulate why it worked. So again, back to those transferable skills. Now I can say, this is how I applied this in this industry and here. And, so I have more confidence and bravery there. So I do think I could do it again. I would be really afraid to because of also that I'm happy now.
Right.
So if I ever if I ever considered it, it would be scary because I'm happy. I don't want to jeopardize any happiness. So I don't see it in my future at the moment, but you never know. I mean, 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, obviously things can change. So I think I would not hesitate to do it. If the time was right and if all the scenarios were right, but at the same time, I'm still sort of just basking in the happiness I found, sort of going back to what I really, really enjoy is that sort of leading that team and building awesome new things. And so, it's only been 2 years. So I think there's a lot of really cool things that I still am going to get into here.
Yes. I think that's great because it's one of those things that as people are trying to figure out, like, should I make a move? Should I not? And I'm scared to do it. Right. It's like, once you've done it, like, how much have you learned, right, in this process? But then it gets easier, right? It gets easier. Even if you never shift again, just having that experience, you might help someone else shift, or even just we're talking about career shift. You had a career shift, but just shifting at work, right? Like, there's new priorities coming down, and now we thought we were going to go this way. Now we're going this way. Those same skills, right, that you use in pivoting a career can be used with pivoting on a project, right? Or pivoting on direction. So just that experience itself, I'm sure has been helpful.
It has been. And I think too, the best position to be in always is to find a place where you're happy and you're fulfilled, but you know that you have other options if you needed to exercise them.
Yeah.
So there's no fear. It's like, well, if this goes south, I have to stay. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I don't feel that way. I feel like this is really great. But if something happened and I felt like I had again, I know I could. Yeah. So it's almost like a lightness, like a freedom about my professional trajectory that I really value, that I don't think I had before. So I think it sort of brought that to me through this experience.
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
Wow. And you are speaking to people. Elena says, inspiring, takeaway to be brave, seek guidance, and do the work. And Megan, gosh, everything happening in your life right now. Well, you are not alone.
No,
you are not alone.
That's true. Yeah.
And there's a community and people that are here to support you on the way too.
That's why we do this show every week, is to share that we're not alone, right? We're not alone in this journey.
No, and I think about some of these takeaways that you have with, like, can you pause enough to listen to what that itch is?
Yes.
Sometimes I think we just shut it down. Like, can we pause to hear what that's telling us, and then be curious enough to actually lean into it? And like, what is that? And what do I need? And not only what do I need, but what do I want?
Yeah.
Like, we are here to dream big and do big things. We are not here to play small. That's and I love how you're like, put the dream out there.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Absolutely. We deserve it. Each of us deserves to reach our dreams, and it's okay to say it. It's okay to say, here's what I really want, and aim for it.
Yeah. And we need that, because even as you tell your story, with a team where it's like you're helping them develop differently. You're helping the people within the organization train in different ways and more effectively, which is impacting customers. Like, if we step into our gifts, like, none of that happened. would have happened. But you taking this step to go, this is my gift and where I love and feel happy, the ripple effect.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing.
What a great way to start our day.
It is. It is.
Yes. Gosh. Well, this has been awesome, Kate, having you here and like learning all about your journey and what you've gone through. Mm-hmm. And, if they're like Elena and Megan, if you're here or others that are listening, if you're curious, like, what does my future, like what's all coming up? What do I want it to be? Make sure you're on our email list. T and I are going to be hosting a workshop the beginning of January. That is going to be the year of you. Mm-hmm. We like to kick off with like carving out this time for you to reflect on like, what is it that I'm doing? Where am I at professionally, personally, and like really creating this plan. So we want to make that space and help you have the tools to do that because you're worth it and you have gifts that other people need.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's a ripple effect, right? Mm-hmm. When we realize the gifts we have and use them, the world needs them, right? And this ripple effect happens. And like Jill said, Kate, if you hadn't stepped into that role, the work that's happening right now at TetraPak, it would not be happening. It would not be happening the way it's happening today. So you realizing your gifts and stepping into it caused that beautiful thing to happen. And each of us wants a piece of that, right? Like each of us wants to make that impact and we want to be happy at the work that we do and we want to be fulfilled. And I love even Megan saying like, this speaks to her on a personal and professional. Those things are connected, yes. Right? And if we're not right ourselves, it shows up in our personal life. It shows up in our professional lives. And that's what we want. How do we be more centered with ourselves is one of the reasons we focus on whole person well-being, right? Because if we're not aligned personally, that shows up professionally and vice versa.
Well, Kate, we have just another minute before we wrap up. Any parting words for our audience today?
I think the biggest thing is just take the time to reflect. And when you identify what you really need and want out of your career, go for it. Mm-hmm. Be brave. Don't be afraid. But look for support. There's a lot of support out there, but just go for it because you deserve it to be happy, to find the thing that helps you fulfill your purpose. And don't let fear be the thing that stops you.
Mm. Yes. And if people want to connect with you, want to hear more about your story or ask you a question, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, the best way is, of course, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I love having new connections there. So please feel free to send me a connection request and we can chat for sure.
Awesome. And you are linked to this Real Talk. So we have you linked. You can find her name there and connect with Kate.
Yes, please do.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody for joining us. Thank you, Kate, for joining us and sharing your story. We will be back here next week, same time, same place with another Real Talk.
Yes. All right. Until then, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.